Jetzt hab ich natürlich schon auf Aufnehmen geklickt, aber ich glaube, es wäre sinnvoll, wenn ich kurz mal nochmal auf Toilette gehe.
Okay, mach, kein Problem.
Bin gleich wieder da.
Hä?
Did you get that?
I'm so
Also ich verstehe nur Bahnhof.
You only understand train station? It's all Greek to me.
Understanding Train Station. Living between cultures with Josh and Phelan.
Welcome back, everyone. We're here again. Surprise, surprise.
That was a
My name
very
is Josh.
strong opening. My name is Feli.
And yeah, as you guys probably already know, you're listening to Understanding Train Station.
Welcome back to another chaotic opening.
I mean, at this point, I think that's our shtick, you know?
It is.
But yeah, this week it's just going to be the two of us, which we have some other stuff planned for you guys the coming weeks that isn't just the two of us, but we thought it would be nice to break things up and catch up with you all and involve you in the conversations that we have as well. So this week is going to be a Q&A episode, if you can't tell from the title already. But before we get into questions and interacting with you all and your questions, how are you doing, Feli?
I'm doing okay. I've had a lot going on in my personal life in the last few weeks. Those of you who follow me on my Feli from Germany Instagram might know about it. I also mentioned it in the podcast here and there with like the renovations and everything. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can tell that I still have my clothes behind me.
I was going to say, I'm wondering when they're going to be gone.
Well, they are gone now, which is the good news. They've been gone for like about 2 weeks at this point. Again, those of you who follow me on Instagram might have seen that they didn't necessarily do the best job, and we had a lot of problems with crooked walls and very ugly caulking and very ugly baseboards and bad paint jobs and stuff like that. So we were just at some point really just glad that they were gone and we could take over and we could like fix the things that they weren't able to do right the first time, which of course we wouldn't have been able to like build a whole wall or something like that, or at least that would have taken us a very long time and a lot of YouTube tutorials. But things like painting, we can do that. And we sanded off the baseboards and repainted those and stuff. We can do all that. So yeah, but we haven't built our closet yet. So we actually, I think I said this on the podcast, that we connected 2 rooms to get like a bigger master bedroom. I'm not 100% sure if I mentioned it. Master bedroom is like such an American concept too. We don't really have that in Germany.
I always get confused in German too, because you refer to the Schlafzimmer and then you have Kinderzimmer, right? But
yeah.
Like, if you're not a child, then do you still call it a Kinderzimmer?
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah, it kind of depends.
Because that's the difference for me between a master bedroom and just a bedroom.
Yeah. But I feel like, for example, when you're house hunting or like apartment hunting in the US, just the amount of rooms is usually referred to as bedrooms, whether that's the master or like any other bedroom, right? Like everything that's not the living room or the kitchen is usually referred to as bedroom, whereas in German that's just called rooms. Like it's just called a 3-room, like Dreizimmerwohnung, 3-room apartment. Even though usually the living room isn't excluded in German standards, like the living room is one of those rooms. Anyways, so basically, good question, because I probably wouldn't refer to my Kinderzimmer at my parents' house as my Schlafzimmer. I think I would just say mein Zimmer. I would just say like my room. And if anything, my parents would probably refer to it as Feli's Kinderzimmer and not Feli's Schlafzimmer. So I'm assuming that, yeah, you're kind of right. I never thought about that.
Yeah, I thought it was confusing as when I was learning that in school. Like, yeah, but like at some point you're not going to be a child sleeping in it. So why are we always referring to it as a Kinderzimmer?
I think people
which is
at that
a
point
child's room.
Exactly,
like child room in English.
I think really at one point you just refer to it as your Zimmer.
Yeah.
I think even as a child you just refer to it as my room, and maybe the adults refer to it as that's the child's room, that's the Kinderzimmer. I think that kind of maybe also implies that that's where they play, that's where like they don't only sleep there, there's like other stuff going on in that room. But yeah, I don't think there's like a specific point in time where you suddenly change to Schlafzimmer. I don't know.
But at this point, so to get back to what you were saying, though, you now created this big American master bedroom.
Bigger. It's not like huge, but this house didn't really have a master's bedroom, a master bedroom. Oh my God.
You live on a plantation now, or what?
Oh gosh. Yeah, that's where that actually comes from, which is like a weird thing. So basically, for all the Germans listening, the master bedroom is usually like the parents' bedroom in the US. It usually implies that it's a bigger bedroom. It often means that it has like a bigger closet, which American closets, I think we mentioned that in the house episode, which was like our third episode.
Yeah.
American closets are usually these things in the wall, like a little Kammer with an actual door or like a sliding door or something like that. And master bedrooms often have a bigger closet, a walk-in closet even. And often, if it's a master suite, they even have their own bathroom attached to it, like in a hotel.
An ensuite is what they call it, which is ridiculous, but yes.
It's super cool. I mean, that's like the biggest luxury thing in the world to me. Like, coming from Germany, I'd never seen that in a German house. I mean, granted, I'm sure like very rich people have that, but like normal middle upper class families that, I've been to, I've never seen that. That's not really a common thing in Germany. But here, I think it's because of the space that Americans have. It's kind of a normal thing. And also Americans just love convenience. So like, it's just nice to have your bathroom attached to your bedroom. But yeah, so this house didn't really have that designated master bedroom that was bigger than the others. And it was like 4 equal bedrooms that were all like the same size, more like a Kinderzimmer size. And so we combined 2 of those, and now it's a bigger room. And we did actually build like a little walk-in closet. So
that was going to be my question, because you said we still have to build the closet. So I wasn't sure if you were talking about build in the American sense of building a closet, which
so we have to build the inside of the closet. So we have like a little wall and a door into like a little side room, and it's completely empty because we want to like customize it and get all the clothing rods so that we can perfectly use the space and like drawers and stuff like that and shelves put in there. And that's something that we're going to do ourselves. So until we've done that, my clothes are still going to live up here in my office.
Lange Rede, kurzer Sinn. Ne?
Yeah, sorry. But maybe we shared a few like interesting pieces of information here and there about the housing differences. Back to like our third episode, I guess that's a throwback.
Yeah, it's a huge throwback. I think we recorded that back at your old place too. So.
Yeah, that was like in probably November or October of 2020.
Oh, how our lives have changed.
Yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, so that is the answer to the question, how I'm doing. I'm doing good. And it's just been very chaotic in my personal life, but it's on the positive side now, finally. Like after kind of suffering through all these stupid struggles with them and like this shit being delayed for weeks after weeks after weeks. Like it was supposed to be 2 to 3 weeks total, and it ended up being 2 months total. And with me working at home, that wasn't necessarily easy. Yeah. But yeah, everything's better now. And also 4th of July happened last week. Maybe we can talk about that in a little bit. But how are you doing? Let's talk about you first.
I miss the warm weather, Feli.
I heard that Germany is having a new heat wave soon.
Hopefully, because this does not feel like July. I should not be able to walk outside in jeans and like a button-down t-shirt or a button-down shirt, like a dress shirt, in the middle of July and not sweat. Like that's not acceptable to me.
Unfortunately, pretty normal in Germany.
I know.
Half of my youth was that.
It's horrible. It's horrible. But I mean, on the one hand, there's some nice aspects to it. I'm not sweating all of the time, but I also miss like going to the pool and like just I don't know, enjoying the warmth more. So I definitely am wanting vacation, which I'm looking forward to going back to the U.S. In August as well, just to see family and also get some heat. So hopefully it's warm while I'm there.
You're going to get some heat and humidity.
Yes. 2 things I miss. So, but no, I mean, other than that, things are going well. Yeah, nothing really too much to report on. It's just been, I feel like at work, as far as that's concerned, there were so many holidays there for a while, but like back to back. Yeah. And now it's like, oh wait, I actually have to work a full week.
Damn.
So I would say that has been a bummer, but in general, it's all good.
Poor you. So, yeah, what was it all? It was Christi Himmelfahrt, right? Fronleichnam.
Yeah. Was Maria Himmelfahrt also in there somewhere?
Is that the one that's in August? I am not sure. I know I lived in that country my whole life, and I had those holidays off every single year for 22 years.
You should know better than me. I have no clue.
think Maria Himmelfahrt is in August. There's one in August, at least in Bavaria, where you have another Thursday off.
Okay, wasn't there also Pfingsten? Yeah, Maria Himmelfahrt is
Pfingsten.
coming.
Yeah, Pfingsten just happened. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so there's
you guys had a
Pfingsten,
lot of
there's
stuff.
Christi Himmelfahrt, there's another Fronleichnam.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm missing the free days off of work.
Oh,
but
poor you.
I know, it's horrible. It's horrible. What am I gonna do?
But yeah, I mean, we had a holiday last week, and I was gonna ask you. I mean, I know that this is already your second year that you're not home for it, but 4th of July is such a big deal in the U.S. Did you do anything for it? Did you like celebrate it in any way?
Nothing.
Okay.
I was in a call with our team that's like half in Ireland, half in Germany, and I got a special shout out. So our boss in Ireland wished me a happy 4th of July, but other than that, that was about the excitement of my 4th of July, which is kind of sad. But it was also on a Monday, so I didn't take the day off of work, and a lot of my friends are traveling right now and on vacation. So if I were to throw something on a Monday night, like, I don't know, it didn't really make much sense to me. So I didn't celebrate. Technically celebrate. I celebrated in my heart.
Okay. Did you
the
miss
4th
your
of
home
July
that
this
day?
year. Not really.
Okay. But do you feel when people say like Happy 4th of July to you, do you feel like that's something that like speaks to you, or does that just feel like, oh, it's just some holiday of my country, but I don't live there right now?
It doesn't. Yeah, it feels more like that. I mean, it doesn't speak to me too much. I mean, I wouldn't call myself the most patriotic American. There are definitely like occasions. I don't know, if I were at a 4th of July party, I probably would be more like in the mood to feel like, oh yeah, USA, I'm happy. But no, generally I wouldn't say like I get too swept up in the emotion of it all. However, I will say this last weekend I went to see Top Gun Maverick with some friends.
Yeah.
And I mean, the movie itself was nothing special as far as like the storyline is concerned. It was all relatively predictable, but I was so into it and I loved every moment of it. And I was like, oh, I miss the US. Like I turned to my friend Chloe and I was like, you know, it's kind of weird, but this movie makes me want to be like, oh, I'm proud to be an American. So it put me in a really good mood. So like sometimes those things will get to me more because I think it plays with your emotions more than the holiday itself, especially if no one else is celebrating around you.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that I think that's a long way to answer your question of no, I didn't really do anything on the 4th. And I wish I maybe would have done a little something, but you know, there's always next year, hopefully.
I mean, I will say from my political point of view, it was also not necessarily the best year to celebrate this country. I feel like with
it's been
everything
rough
that's happened in the last few weeks and months, with women's rights and, you know, a few mass shootings and, you know, stuff like that, that I think our listeners and viewers know that at least I don't agree with those things and I have very strong opinions. So, like, I did celebrate the 4th of July because
what did you
I am
do?
here and Ben's family had something. So we went there and, like, they all don't agree with what's happening. But, you know, it's still, like, a holiday. People are off. Like, you still get together with your family and, like, they didn't really do anything crazy with like American flags or stuff like that, but you know, you just kind of get together, have a barbecue, and hang out. And then, of course, the fireworks were crazy.
I was gonna say that's what I think that's what I miss is the fireworks because fireworks shows in the U.S. they do a good job.
Yeah, it's insane. We didn't even watch an official one this year, but like just here in my neighborhood, my like direct neighbors went off all night from Sunday to Monday night because like she had like her whole family over, like all of her nieces and whatever siblings, everyone, and they were just partying hardcore. And then like every other house here in my neighborhood had like something going on, and they were all sitting in their front yards with all their lawn chairs, and people were like shooting the fireworks on the sidewalk or in the street. So yeah, I actually like came back so we got together with Ben's family on Sunday, which was actually July 3rd, but because it was like a Sunday and then people didn't have to work on Monday, it was like a nice occasion to get together the day before.
Yeah.
And so we came back home and I actually had to finish up a video, the video with Ben that I published on the 4th of July. So I came back home and I just like sat here where I'm sitting right now and I edited and have a window right here. And I was just editing and watching the fireworks at the same time.
Fun.
It was actually really nice.
It's
I
cool.
was like, this is a really privileged working situation.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. And now that you're talking about like people getting together with family and all of that, yeah, I mean, I do miss that. And it's just a special feeling. And I mean, I don't have any holidays here where I get together with my family, so that's definitely something I miss. But no, the 4th can be fun, but like you said, it's been a rough couple years for the U.S. lately. So
Yeah.
especially recently. But yeah, enough about 4th of July, unless you have anything else to add to that, Feli.
No.
I would say that we should go ahead and just jump into your guys' questions then.
Yes, and just like last time, the last Q&A episode was actually the German one, so I don't know if all of you watched or listened to that. If you didn't and you would like to, we did add subtitles on the YouTube version. So like, if you want to sit through a hour-long German episode, but read the subtitles, you can definitely do so. And we answered a lot of questions in that episode. But just like we did then, we asked you again on Instagram. So if you don't follow us on Instagram, you can do so at Understanding Train Station. And then we kind of do these things like last minute. I don't know why that's become a habit, but we just like, hey, which topic do you want to talk about this week? And we have like a list, right, of topics. And then we kind of both didn't really feel any of the topics this week, so we kind of wanted
sometimes.
Yeah, we wanted something more lighthearted. So we thought it's a good time to do another Q&A episode, and then we actually posted about that today, earlier today. So thank you guys for submitting your questions on there. And if you didn't see it in time, then make sure to follow us on Instagram. And we don't post a lot, but when we do post, it's usually important. So then you can participate next time.
Exactly. Let's go ahead and start with the first question then.
Okay, let's start with like a very lighthearted question about languages. Which is, in your opinion, the worst word to pronounce in each language? I'm assuming they mean German and English, because I don't know any language in the world, but...
That's an interesting question, or a hard question, because I don't want to give just like your typical answer. I mean, what came to mind when I first saw this question was Eichhörnchen, which is squirrel.
The classic, yeah.
Which is, obviously the classic that everyone goes for. The other classic that people always say is Streichholzschächtelchen, which I think is harder than Eichhörnchen.
It is, but it's also not actually used.
Exactly.
Ever.
That's the thing, though, is it's not like a real word. So, but I mean, those are two examples. Do you have one on the top of your mind right now, Feli, that comes
for English?
For English, yeah.
I mean, people usually also say squirrel, especially for Germans, I think, or I don't know if it's for all non-native English speakers or just for us Germans. But I personally never found that to be super tricky. I don't know if I say it 100% accurately, but I don't think I ever really struggled with it. But one thing that I definitely still struggle with sometimes is the word rural. It's just the whole like
native English speakers. Native speakers struggle with that too. It's horrible. Rural.
Rural. Like I've said that in so many videos, and like especially in a video, I really try to speak clearly. In my videos on Feli from Germany, you probably know that if you've ever watched my videos. And that makes it even harder, because then I try to pronounce every single word really clearly, and then there's this one word where it's impossible. The more clearly I try to pronounce it, the worse it gets, basically.
I actually just thought of one that I struggle with sometimes as well in German. The word scene, like as in like a movie scene.
Szene.
Because it's a Szene. I mean, I never say it that way. I just say Szene. But it's not. I just hope that no one hears, because it's so inconvenient to go Szene. It's like...
Interesting. I'd never thought about that, but you're right. For some reason, I feel like... I know that some Germans struggle with that, and I know that some Germans also kind of go the lazy route, if you will, like you do, and say like Szene. But I never considered that like a difficult word.
It's not that it's difficult per se. It's just, I feel like I can't think of any other word in the German language that I know that is a S and that makes the SZ sound like that. So it's just it's not hard per se. It's just something that is that combination you don't have very often. So it's ungewöhnlich.
Definitely. Speaking about that, another word comes to mind that's kind of like related topic-wise that a lot of Germans struggle with, and it's the German word for director.
I feel like I always mess it up too, but it's Regisseur.
That's correct.
Not Regisseur.
Well, a lot of Germans actually get the the consonants mix up. So they say, Regisseur instead of Regisseur.
Okay.
So that's like a thing.
Yeah. Director.
Yeah, I mean, in English,
No one
that's
says that, but yeah.
relatively nice. Yeah, Director would more be a Schuldirektor or a Zirkusdirektor, or even, is there
like a circus director or a principal.
Yeah, so that's that word.
That's
but
funny.
I mean, it comes from Regie führen. Like, is there a translation for Regie führen? It's just to direct a movie, right? There's no...
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
Regie führen, like there is basically a noun for directing that is Regie in German, and that's where that comes from. And then if you keep that in mind, it's relatively easy to say Regisseur because it's basically just Regie and then Sir.
Yeah.
But oh well.
I remember I needed a while. I mean, I needed a while for that word, and I also needed a while to be able to pronounce Lehrer. But I've talked about that before. That's like my go-to. It's just the German R. Anything with the German R in it is difficult, at least at the beginning. But yeah, nowadays still I would say Szene is it's just annoying, is what it comes down to.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of Germans also struggle with the TH, obviously. So I know that there's a few very tricky words with the TH, but I can't really think of one right now.
Thistle.
What?
Thistle?
What's a thistle? What is that?
I forget how to say it in German. It's part of like tongue twisters. No one ever talks about a thistle.
Oh, okay, good, because I was very embarrassed that I didn't know what you were talking about.
Distel.
Okay. A plant.
But yeah.
3 maybe, because it has the TH and the R, 3. I think that is like a kind of beginner struggle for a lot of people. But yeah, I think we answered the question.
Yes. Let's move on to the next one. Can Lingoda really help me learn better German? What do you have to say about this, Feli?
That's a very interesting question. I mean, yeah, I would definitely say so because they offer face-to-face learning anywhere in the world. You guys probably know that they sponsor a podcast, so shout out to them. And they actually have their sprint challenge going on right now, which means that you can, within a very short amount of time, get your language skills to the next level, which is super helpful because they have the super sprint, where you actually commit to taking 30 lessons a month for 2 months, so it's 60 lessons in total. And then if you do that, you get 100% cash back for attending all of the lessons if you follow all of the requirements. And that's just like, it's a big commitment, but it's also high reward because if you really take one lesson in that language every single day, whether you're a beginner or already a little bit more advanced, that's really going to get you speaking. And that's going to improve your language skills so much because even just like hearing the language every day helps a lot. And then speaking it and practicing it with a professional teacher and classmates in a group class is just going to be so helpful. If that sounds a little bit much to you, you can also do the sprint challenge, which is 15 lessons per month for 2 months, which is a total of 30 lessons. And then if you do that and follow through, you can get 50% cash back. So that's not quite as much and probably not quite as high of a reward, but also a lot. I mean, if you like think about how often every other day is, like that's still a lot and that's still going to get you to that next level. And what's really cool is that you can just do that from the convenience of your own home, your bed, your dining table, your desk, wherever you want to do it, or even on the go somewhere, because it's on the internet, it's online, and they have classes available 24/7. So it doesn't matter which time zone you're in.
In summary, Lingoda can help you really make a huge difference in your language learning efforts. I can't speak from the German perspective, or Feli also can't speak from the German perspective, but from the classes that we've sat in on, we definitely know that it is a huge plus. And if you guys commit to it, the only thing that's standing in your way is yourself. So make sure that you guys take advantage of these opportunities that Lingoda has to be able to give yourself that little extra boost to put in the commitment and the time, and then you really will be able to improve your German. Or if you're also interested in learning any other languages, they also offer English, business English, Spanish, and French.
So the cool thing is really that you're going to be with an actual teacher that you can ask questions. They can like address your skills and your struggles that you still have with the language directly and individually. So that's just really helpful. And if you even want to do it with just the teacher, you can do a private class, or otherwise it's usually group classes with up to 5 students. So that really ensures that the teacher does have time for you and you get to to speak every single time. And the best thing is that we also have a discount code for you. It's UTS July, so UTSJULY. And with that, you can get 20 euros, which equals $25 off the deposit that you have to pay when you first sign up for the class. And you can just sign up for the classes with our link in the show notes or in the info box below on YouTube.
So let's move on to the other question, or the next question. Ooh.
Which one?
Welche Sprache mögt ihr grundsätzlich ein bisschen mehr, English oder Deutsch? So maybe to translate, which language do you guys essentially like a little more, English or German? I'm going to say English.
Okay.
I like the flexibility that English gives, and I like the informality that I feel like English has compared to German. And it's my native language, so I feel obviously the most comfortable expressing myself in it. So for me, it's always going to have that just little plus to it, you know? But I love German, and I love speaking German and having the opportunity to speak it every day.
Yeah. I feel like it's so difficult because it depends on in which context do I prefer it, because I connect different emotions with each language depending on the situation. So obviously also, as you said, I can express myself better in German, 100%. And I also think that in general, German is a language that in most cases, I would say, can get more precise than English can. So like it has very precise adjectives in some situations, and it has all these compound words that are put together out of like 4 or 5 different nouns that like describe one item very precisely. So I've definitely run into a lot of situations where I try to translate this one word from German into English, and I realize, wait, there is no translation for this in English. You just have to describe it in English, which on the other hand makes it more flexible, as you said, because you don't always have to know these like specific words in English. You can just, and that makes it easier for me sometimes because I have to describe things anyways as a non-native speaker. And then in a lot of cases, that's the correct way to do it anyway. Like that's how a native speaker would do it also, because there is no word that I'm lacking here. But yeah, that was a long explanation. But basically, I feel like I have very positive emotions connected to English. And in a lot of cases, it makes me happy to speak in English and hear English. And I think that kind of goes back to our episode where we talked about different personalities in different languages.
Yeah.
I think whenever I speak English, I'm sometimes a more optimistic and easygoing person, where I slip more into that personality. And so sometimes I find that to be like a lighter question, or like it puts me in a more lighthearted mood, I guess, or like a happier mood. But then at the same time, of course, I'm also happy. Like there's many, many happy situations when I speak German. But I think like overall, that would be my first connotation. And I just know whenever in Germany I hear someone speak, especially American English, I'm like, oh, that's so cool. Like that gives me nice feelings to hear that. Not as nice as when I hear German in the US, actually. That's always just like, oh, there's Germans.
No, I mean, I know what you mean as far as like the emotions connected to it. Like I definitely feel I'm more, I might be more direct in German, but I'm also more reserved in German. And I don't necessarily like that. And that's one thing that I'm trying to change, is like being more outgoing in German. I think partially it just has to do with maybe sometimes a lack of confidence. Like, oh, like I'm hanging out with a whole bunch of Germans and they're speaking, especially because I work with a couple people, specifically one person who speaks so fast.
Okay.
And I mean, sometimes I struggle to understand him just because of the speed.
Really?
And I mean, he's from the north too. So he
sounds
has
like our friend Niklas.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, sometimes I don't understand what Niklas says. But yeah, so I that's one thing that I'm trying to change, is be less reserved when I speak German.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can agree with that.
I feel like that might be a difficult thing to do, because I'm assuming that one of the other reasons why you're so reserved in German is just the culture that comes with the language.
I would say that's actually probably the main reason, and the other reasons are more than I get in my head about it. But yeah.
Right. But I kind of feel like you would have to implement that American mindset into the German version of yourself, if you will, the German-speaking version. And that can be really difficult, because I've tried that before, and in a lot of cases, it just doesn't work in German. Like, it comes across as ungenuine. Is ungenuine a word? Disgenuine? Ingenuine? As not genuine. And just like, and fake. It just doesn't sometimes work the same way as it does in English. Of course, there's always ways to make it work, but it's definitely difficult.
Yeah, for
So,
sure.
I feel you there.
One question was more accent/dialect videos, question mark?
In August, maybe, when you're here?
That's what I was going to say too, is we try to do those videos when we're in person because it's easiest with the setup. So hopefully when we are there, or when I'm in Cincinnati in August, we'll be able to record something. But for those of you who don't know, we like to do a kind of a dialect series where you guys can send us your dialect, you speaking with your accent, and we have to try to figure out where you're from. So really, no matter where you are in the world, we tend to do it with German because it's easier, I would say, to specifically place people in Germany based off of their dialect. But even if you speak English with a non-native English speaking accent as well, it's always fun to try to figure out where people are from just based off of the way they speak. Maybe, Feli, you can explain briefly how they can send us the voice message the best way if you guys would like to participate in the next video.
Yeah, ideally you send it over anchor.fm because then we have them all in one place. And that's kind of what we do during those episodes. We just sit down and go to Anchor and then like go through all the recordings on there. That's our podcast hosting platform. So you just go to anchor.fm/understanding train station. The link is also down below. And then there's like on the main page, there's like a little plus button with like, I think it says message. You just click on that and then I think it automatically starts recording a 1 minute long voice message. So there's a time limit there. So if your message is longer than a minute, you're going to have to send a second one, which is also fine. But it's also nice because that means that people are a little bit limited in their submissions. And then we also get to go through more in one episode.
And make sure if you guys do send us an audio clip for us to guess, don't tell us what accent or dialect it is until the end.
Yeah, and don't put it in the title ideally either.
Yes.
Because I think there's like a title that you have to send with the actual voice recording, and a lot of people say like, John from New York City or something like that. And then it's like, oh, okay, well, I guess that's your accent. But yeah, thank you guys so much for submitting those. We really enjoy hearing you and, of course, guessing your accents and dialects, but just even being able to interact with you is really cool, which actually there was a question about that.
Yeah.
Wann kann man euch mal bei einem Fan-Treffen sehen? When is it possible to see you guys during a fan meetup? Which I don't know if that's ever gonna happen, guys. I'm sorry.
I mean, we've tossed around the idea a bit, and I don't know. I would be open to having a fan meetup. It would be kind of weird. I don't know. It's happened to me in the past where like people recognize me from the podcast. It's only happened like twice, but it's a very uncomfortable feeling. But I think if I knew in the moment that, okay, we're going to be meeting people who have listened to our podcast, I think it could be an interesting experience. So I guess let us know if that's something that you guys would be interested in. And depending on if we have time or not when we are somewhere in the world, maybe we can organize something. But I don't know. What do you think, Feli?
I'm not opposed to it in general, but that's kind of what I was thinking is like, we'd have to organize it. We'd both have to be in the same place. I think maybe Munich would be a better place because I'm pretty sure we have more listeners and viewers from Munich than we have from the city of Cincinnati. So it's just going to be difficult because we have listeners and viewers from all over the world.
Yeah.
Maybe we can do that at some point, but every time I'm home in Munich, I'm like very, very busy.
Yeah.
And we'd have to schedule it ahead, obviously, for people to know about it. So I wouldn't rely on that to happen within the next half year. So, because I don't even know. Yeah, I'm going to be in Munich in September probably for Oktoberfest, but probably only for a few days. So I don't even think I could do it then.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll see. No promises.
Yeah, no promises, but we're open to the idea. It's just the logistics behind it all, I would say.
You can, however, hang out with us virtually once a month if you become a Patreon supporter. On patreon.com/understandingtrainstation, you can pick your support tier, so however much money you want to pay us or donate to us every month. And then you get to participate in our hangout sessions that we usually do towards like the end of each month. And we just have like a video call like we have right now with everyone that's wants to join, that supports us on Patreon, and we just chat with you guys. We chat about the most recent episodes, about things we got wrong, about different experiences that people had. You guys get to ask us questions, so that's maybe a way to have a fan meetup. until we
Yeah.
actually make it happen in real life.
And we really enjoy those calls too. It's a fun little behind the scenes type thing, and we get to know our listeners more too.
Yeah.
So we have like our little group that we always see.
Yeah.
So if you want to join, make sure to support us on Patreon so you have access. Maybe a quick response that we can give to this. Do y'all have any tips or resources for learning the cases in declination? I think
That's a
the
question
reason
for you,
I was going to
Josh.
say, I think the reason I say it would be short is because, I mean, Feli, you were a German teacher for a bit, but I mean, we're both not German teachers per se. I could explain it to you, but as far as resources are concerned, I don't really have any that I would say, oh, go check this out. It's really helpful. It's really something that you just have to sit down and learn and
I mean,
study
you
and
had
commit
a
it to
lot
memory.
of-
I have like, it's hard because this is an audio platform, but I'd say the best thing that you can do is come up with some Eselsbrücken, so some little tricks to remember it. So like, for example, if you sit down and look at the table of all of the various cases in their declination, there's one thing that you can do to make it look like a toilet seat. And then you can remember, okay, depending on the toilet seat, it's like this. Or for example, in accusative, if you look at the endings of the articles, it's my high school German teacher called it the bad boy case, because the only ending that changes is the N in the masculine. So it changes from der to den.
Or you have the noodle case.
Exactly. Or you have the noodle case, which is dative. So if you in nominative have der, die, das, die, so the last D being plural, you could then change it to the noodle case and remember macaroni, ravioli, macaroni, noodle. So der becomes dem, die becomes der, das becomes dem, and die becomes der. So macaroni, ravioli, macaroni, noodle. Like I said, this is tricky because it's an audio platform, but those are little tips and tricks that I had to remember. I'm trying to think if there was another one. Nothing that comes...
S1010 for declination,
that's for conjugation, yeah.
Conjugation, yeah, thank you. I couldn't think of the word.
Yeah, that's a tricky one to describe with just words.
There's like a lot of little tricks for sure, and I think they're all out there on the internet and in different resources. I would definitely recommend Easy German. I think they're very helpful. There's a lot of Instagram platforms also out there. Lerne Deutsch is one, for example.
Yeah, I mean, Easy German is a really good resource. That's one thing that I used to watch all the time. I just feel like at this point, I'm kind of out of the world of like looking at German learning content for the most part.
Yeah.
So I feel I don't have too many resources besides what I had in high school that really helped me.
Yeah, but I mean, if you, for example, take a class or something, they're going to be able to provide you with that. There's obviously textbooks, like the classic, just course book, basically. I don't really have a recommendation right now as to which one's the best. It also depends on what your native language is, which textbooks you would go with. So yeah, I think you're going to have to just maybe Google it. There's also a bunch of, Facebook groups and people who help each other with that stuff. So maybe that's where you can find a lot of those things. For German, it's definitely going to be a lot of learning by heart, unfortunately.
Yeah. But once you commit it to memory, it becomes a part of you. And at some point, you will reach nirvana and not have to think about it anymore too much, at least. So moving on. I think this one will be interesting as well. Can you explore the fashion differences and stereotypes of the US versus Germany?
Can I start?
Yes, of course.
Okay, so when you're in Germany and you just walk through the city, you could just tell who the American tourists are by looking at their clothing, because they will usually wear some kind of merch t-shirt or a jersey. So it'll have like maybe their university or something on it. A lot of them, especially in the summer, wear like gym shorts or like a typical kind of more like, I don't know, trekking shorts. I don't even know what to call them, but like I can usually tell the difference, but especially when it's gym shorts. And gym shoes or tennis shoes or sneakers, however you want to call it, depending on where you're from in the US. So like Turnschuhe, like Laufschuhe.
Actually the mesh shoes that that look like you could do sports in them, like you could do physical activity.
They're actually made for that.
Yes.
Usually, yeah.
Exactly.
And then of course baseball hats. Yeah, I think that's
very casual, I would say.
Yeah, and Germans in general, I mean, think Germany is an interesting country in that regard, because I would say overall we're more fashionable, we're more European in our clothing style. But then, of course, the typical German stereotype is actually not at all that.
Yeah.
It's actually that we're like wearing our Jack Wolfskin functional wear. And I think you have both of those Germans. But especially in Munich, where I'm from, you'll also definitely see a whole lot of very fashionable people with like, tight jeans or like whatever's in right now. Like I guess the bell bottoms are back in, so that. But more like what you would maybe expect in France or Italy even.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. I told my mom at some point that Germans dress up more, which I don't necessarily think is the best way to put it. Because it's
we
not
just
like
wear jeans more, I think.
exactly.
Like,
I would say like there's just a little bit more effort put into the look, in the sense of wearing jeans, wearing like not branded per se, like college brands, or like you said, merchant, not wearing merch, but rather wearing like maybe a little bit more designer clothing, or like, I don't know, the typical look for me is also the white gym shoes and the jeans. Is very, very, at least Munich. I don't know about the rest of Germany per se. But like your typical Munich guy has like a button down white t-shirt with jeans and then white sneakers. Yeah. Like I feel like that's the classic Munich.
Yeah, but more like not the like athletic sneakers, more like a Nikes or like Air Force Ones or something like that.
Yeah. Or even like more of like a hard shell sneaker that has like like an Adidas white. I don't know how to describe it because I don't know. But for me, I would agree with the American stereotypes as well that you said. Like people more in gym shoes, gym clothes, lots of merchandise. Like, I don't know, today, every time I see it, I'm like, I should yell, like, go Packers, because I saw someone in a Green Bay Packers hat the other day. And it's almost, I would say, like, probably 85-90% of the time, they are Americans if they're wearing that type of merchandise.
Yeah. And girls in leggings also, I think overall it's called like, is it called like athleisure wear, where it's like a mix of like athletic wear and like leisure wear? Because in the US, just wearing athletic clothing such as yoga pants, leggings, gym shorts, all that stuff is like what you wear in your leisure time. Like that's what people wear at home, and even they wear it to the store. And I think that's like the difference. I know that many Germans also wear stuff like that at home. They might not have as many pieces of those kinds of clothing, but they would never leave the house with that, or at least the threshold to do so is much, much higher. So like I know, for example, my dad, sorry that I'm telling this on the podcast, but I think he's a typical example for this. And that's how I grew up too, and that's how I still do it in Munich. He wears like sweatpants at home, and then whenever he just goes to the gas station or to the store to get one item, he will switch into jeans first. Yeah. Like he would never just walk out of the house like that. Whereas Americans often don't even change their shoes either. Like I see so many Americans in these like kind of not house shoe, but more like, slippers, like sandals, whatever, at the store, where you can just tell that this is the shoes that they wore at home and they just walked into the car just like that.
Exactly. I think another good example, I didn't go to the gym too much in the US, but I feel like people are much, much more comfortable leaving the gym looking like they just left the gym. Whereas I've noticed here in Germany, people would really tend to like shower at the gym and then put on their nice clothes again to leave the gym. There's still people who obviously leave sweaty, including me, but like I've noticed there are more people who, after working out, put effort into looking nice again before they leave. I don't know if you would agree with that.
I would agree with that 100% because, it's just not really a normal sight on the U-Bahn or in the streets to see someone like sweaty and like with a sports top or something like that. Yeah.
Maybe this is a question that I think you might have an interesting response to, Feli. Gute Smalltalk-Themen als Deutscher in den USA. So what are some good small talk topics as a German in the US? I think it's especially interesting because I know Germans have this stereotype, if you will, it's also somewhat true of the US, of being able to have small talk with people, and maybe people are asking themselves, how do I do that, or what's the best way, because they want to experience the small talk culture as well. What do you think?
I think that's a very good question, actually, because I know that I struggled with that, and I know that most German tourists struggle with that, because we don't really do that, like what we would maybe call trivial small talk about, these unimportant topics, but it's something that Americans really appreciate. And even when Americans then do it with you, Germans often struggle with like leading it into the next topic or like continuing the conversation because they're not really used to that. So I would say, number one, if you're German or visiting the US, just say that you're German, say that you're from Germany, that you're visiting. And I feel like 90% of all Americans, 90% of all Americans are going to be like, oh my God, that's so cool. Welcome to the US. How do you like it? And then like, maybe don't be too German about it, how you like it. Like make it a little bit nicer of what you would actually say in German because they might get offended if you're too direct and too honest. But then they might want to know where in Germany you're from. So then they're going to maybe talk about whether they know that city. Maybe they have a soccer club that they happen to follow or know about, or they have maybe even ancestry in the region. If they have German ancestry, they might bring that up. So like there's really a lot of topics that can come off from just you mentioning that you're visiting from Germany. So that's really, even though I know that us Germans, we don't think that it's special to be from Germany. But when I first came here, every time I mentioned that, it was like, oh my God, that's so cool. And I would just always think, what do you mean? It's just Germany. Like we're not France, or I'm not from Australia. I'm just from Germany. It's like, Nazi country. It's people with socks and sandals. It's really not that special. But Americans find a lot of topics to talk about in that regard. So number one. And then other than that, I think we've mentioned that before. I would say sports. And that really depends on whether you know anything about American sports. If you don't, then that's probably not the best topic to bring up. But that's definitely something that Americans can always talk about. But there's also some Americans that follow soccer. So
exactly. I think one thing that comes to mind too, and I mean, this I guess is more if you're trying to, I don't know, I just think the mentality of small talk is interesting because Americans will be very, very open about a lot of things in their life in small talk. Like I'm just thinking, when I used to work at Target, so at a store as a cashier, people standing in line, you'd hear people looking in other people's baskets, not like peering in and going over and looking at what they have, but if they see that they bought something that they've had before, they'll be like, "Ooh, I've had that before. It's so good that you're gonna really like that." So people, or they'll say, "Oh, I don't know, my sister did this with that," and like they'll talk about their private lives very much more open, I would say, as far not like super in detailed or things that are too important or too personal. Like, I don't know, as an American would say too personal. For a German, it might feel very personal, but just, I would say try to be a little bit more open because the Americans will be very open with you for the most part about their lives as well.
Same with compliments. Like what you just said, I feel like that same situation could also be that the person turns around and just says, oh my God, I love your sweater or whatever you're wearing, right? And then don't be thrown off by that if that happens to you if you're visiting the US. Just be friendly and say, oh, thank you so much. And maybe you can compliment that person back on something or also bring something up about, what they are buying or something. But like that's also something that happens. And that was weird for me in the beginning because that would happen every now and then with strangers where I would just be like, wait, what?
Why are you looking at what I'm buying?
No, with the compliments, like, are you hitting on me? Like, do you want to sell me something? Or like one time, I mean, this also does happen sometimes that it's like people who are asking you for money. That also happens. But that was more, I always just thought, wait, you want money from me? What do you want from me? Why are you being nice to me? Why are you complimenting my clothing or my hair or something? But in most cases, it's really just people that want to be friendly to each other. Even on the street, like walking past, that happens. Just being like, hey, that's a cool jacket.
Yeah. I think it's also just important to add, though, this is also a very Midwestern Southern perspective. On the coasts, you will still probably, compared to Germany, experience people being more open, but on the coasts, people are much more reserved compared to the Midwest.
But I feel like in California, people, like on the West Coast, people are still open more. In New York, though, like on the East Coast, definitely not as much. So like, don't expect that to happen as much. I think, it's still definitely closer to a European city. Yeah. I can't really speak for like what it's like on the East Coast in smaller places because I've only ever really stayed in New York or Boston or something like that, but I've never ever stayed in a smaller town on the East Coast. So I don't really know if that's more like just the big places on the East Coast or everywhere, but yeah, you're right. Definitely.
But just wanted to throw that in there as well. So hopefully those are some tips that can help you guys.
Yeah, I know that Germans need that help, and you might need the practice too, because I really needed to kind of like practice, like exercise my brain to get into that small talk vibe.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I had to exercise my brain here in Germany to be able to take very directness, like very direct comments.
Yeah.
And lack of customer service. But moving on from that, someone says it would be interesting to learn more about superstitions and omens. I don't know about omens per se. I mean, I think a lot of omens are shared between cultures. I'm saying that, but now that I'm thinking about it, I'm not 100% sure. Like in the US, seeing a black cat is supposed to be bad luck. I'm pretty sure that's also the same thing in Germany. If you break a mirror, if you open up an umbrella inside, like I think those are all things that are bad luck in Germany as well as in the US.
Breaking a mirror might even be good luck in Germany. Scherben bringen Glück.
Okay, maybe I'm wrong about that.
I'm not sure what it's like in the US. I can also honestly see it go both ways.
We also have one that if you walk underneath a ladder, that's bad luck.
I think we have the
Germany,
same
right?
ones. Yeah, I think. I mean, we talked with Anna about Ukrainian superstitions and stuff like that, and I think they definitely have a lot of different ones. And I'm sure there's some different ones between Germany and the US, but I would say overall it's very similar, like knock on wood. Or what are other things that you do for good luck?
I mean, I'm thinking...
four-leaf clover or something like that.
One difference, at least, I don't know if we've talked about this on the podcast before, is Germans, to wish people luck, will press their thumbs. So like they make a fist where their thumb is inside towards the palm of your hand, which looks ridiculous if you're an American. But Americans will cross their fingers, which you also say, I believe in Germany, if you're telling a lie, if you cross your fingers, like, is that a thing? If you're telling a lie and you cross, or if you're saying something and you cross your fingers, that negates what you're saying.
Yeah.
We also
or you're
have
like
that in
breaking the
US.
promise or something like that. Yeah, I think that's a pretty well known, or at least probably, I'm assuming most people that listen to us probably knew about that already, but I don't even think we've brought that up in the podcast before. So yeah, that's a big one.
Trying to think if we have any other superstitions. I think a huge one is related to birthdays in Germany that doesn't exist in the US.
Good point.
Is in Germany, it's very, very bad luck to wish someone a happy birthday before their actual birthday. There's like zero taboo about that in the US whatsoever. People will celebrate their birthdays a week before, or wish people happy birthday all the time. Like that's not an issue at all in the US. But if you're an American or really from anywhere else in the world where that's not an issue, just be cognizant of that fact when you're in Germany and wishing people happy birthday. Yeah,
that's very, very true. And it also applies to Happy New Year. Like everything that has like a time stamp on it, I guess, like a birthday. Like you can't wish a person happy birthday before they've actually turned that new age. Yeah. And I guess it's the same with like the new year. So you really wait until midnight until you say Happy New Year. And I feel like it's kind of similar with holidays too. It just popped in my head that I said that we celebrated the 4th of July basically a day early. I don't think that would happen in Germany either. Or at least that's not something that sounds familiar to me. My family's never done that. But here, I know that people do that with other holidays too. Yeah. Not necessarily Christmas or something like that, but even like Thanksgiving.
Easter or Thanksgiving,
or birthdays, like having like a family dinner like the weekend before, where I feel like, wait, what? But the birthday hasn't happened yet. What do you mean? So yeah, that's definitely different. Yeah.
Someone asks, I'm translating now, but is Josh Spanish as perfect as his German? Which languages are still planned? No, it's not as good as my German by any means. I mean, I've had work calls in Spanish, and I've been able to talk myself out of a couple tickets in Puerto Rico in Spanish and travel around Mexico without any problems speaking Spanish. So, I mean, I definitely am relatively confident in my Spanish skills. Since I've lived in Germany, I've had fewer opportunities to practice, so I've noticed it getting worse. But no, it's nowhere close to as good as my German. And as far as other languages that are planned, I've been learning, I mean, French is like, I say I'm learning French. I'm not putting any active effort into it right now.
But you're hanging out with French people.
Exactly. So I learn, and I feel like my understanding has gotten better too. And then recently I started trying to learn some Serbo-Croatian, Bosnian, however you want to refer to the language, because I work with a couple Croatians, so I'm kind of surrounded by that as well. So just like I took advantage of working with Mexicans to learn Spanish, it would be cool to learn a little bit more of Serbo-Croatian.
I did not know that. That's really cool.
But that's very recent. So.
Okay. There is another German question, and it's größte unbegründete Ängste vor dem Auswandern. So what were the biggest What's unbegründet? Like
Unreasonable?
Unreasonable, yeah. Unreasonable fears before you left your country. That's a big question.
It is a big question. I don't really know if I have a true answer to that. I know that we've looked at these in advance, and you mentioned you maybe had a few things to say about it. But
I mean, I definitely know that before I went on my exchange semester, I was very scared of all the uncertainties. And I think that was like my main fear. Whether that was unreasonable, I don't know, because I think that's just very normal. But in my case, I didn't really have that moment of Auswandern, of like moving abroad and like leaving your country behind. I think I've said this on the podcast before, but it was more like a step-by-step process for me. And the first time I came here was for a 5-month exchange semester. So it really wasn't going to be permanent at all. I sublet my apartment in Munich. I only packed for like those 5 months, right? And like I didn't buy a whole lot of stuff here in the US because I thought, well, why would I buy that? I'm just going to leave here again. So it doesn't make any sense. So I think I just didn't have a lot of these fears and issues that usually people have to deal with when they actually move to a country permanently. So I didn't have to deal with all the bureaucratic stuff because I was just on an exchange student visa. I didn't work here. I just did my classes. I was in that like exchange student bubble. I didn't open a bank account in the beginning. Like I didn't have to deal with all of those things. So I wasn't afraid of any of that at first. And I think that's what made my process of moving here so easy, is that I got to come here in that like kind of safe bubble. And I didn't have to worry about a lot of these other issues that you usually have to worry about as an adult. And then once I knew the city and the people and a lot of the cultural differences and a lot of these other things that you still have to deal with, that's when I then took that next step of like, oh, maybe I need to open up a bank account. So like, you know,
and those things don't become scary at that point.
Exactly, because like then I was already here and I already knew people. So I think my biggest fear really in the beginning was, and I don't know if that's something that people would assume about me, but I was very scared of leaving my home. And I wanted to, though, like I really wanted to do a semester abroad. But growing up, was always a very, I guess, scared person, like a shy little kid that I never wanted to go anywhere without my parents. I never wanted to go to a new school or a new place where I didn't know how things worked. I always liked to know how things worked before I get thrown into it. And so, I mean, at that point when I was 22, I had obviously already had a lot of life experiences where I was thrown into the deep end kind of, and I had to learn things. And obviously I wasn't as scared anymore as when I was 5, but I'd still had that like deep-rooted connection to my home and the familiar and my comfort zone. And I've just never been a very adventurous person that wants to leave their comfort zone. Well, here I am living on the other side of the world now. But even though I wanted to do that and I knew that it was going to be fun to leave my comfort zone again, because I'd done it several times at that point, the nights before actually coming to the US, I was very scared because it was just this empty, blank page. Yeah, it was just like I didn't know anything. I didn't know what the next 5 months of my life were going to be like at all. I didn't know what my place was going to look like that I was going to move into. I didn't know any of the people that I was going to meet. I didn't know what my classes were going to be like. I didn't even know which classes I was taking yet, I don't think. I didn't, it was just completely blank. And I think that really scared me. At that point. And then once I was here, of course, I realized, oh, it's not that bad. Like, especially because I said I was in that bubble and I had a lot of people around me helping me. And, everything turned out to be so much easier than I was afraid of. But especially with university in Germany, I didn't know that people were going to help me as much in the US in college as, they did, because I expected it to be more like the German system where they don't help you a whole lot. And I didn't know if the other exchange students were going to be cool, if I would get along with anyone. So fortunately, everything obviously turned out for the best. And like everything there was no reason really to be scared. But I still wouldn't say that fear was unreasonable, because I think it's normal to be afraid of the unknown. Yeah. And things could have gone wrong. Like I was just lucky in the end. So I think that's my biggest fear. And I don't even think that helps anyone. Maybe it just helps you that even I think I maybe come across as someone very self-confident now. Even I was very scared of that, and it's okay and normal to be scared of those steps. Those are big steps to take.
For sure. I mean, For me, it is funny to hear you say that you were afraid, because I definitely see you as more, an adventurous person that likes to go out and try new things. And so, yeah, that's very interesting insights for me as your friend as well. But no, in my case, I can identify with a lot of that. I would say the biggest, and I would say it's somewhat unreasonable, at least in my case. It really depends on your individual case, but like I think I blew out of proportion how quote unquote hard it would be to be away from family. It hasn't been easy, but like I still am in contact with my family. I still see them relatively, FaceTime with them. And then also, I go back to the US regularly. And like, I think that was a big fear of mine, is like, oh my God, I'm never going to see them again in my life, is the way that I felt. Whereas in reality, that's not the case. So I would say that might have been a little bit of an unreasonable fear on my side. Yeah. But I think you kind of hit the nail on the head, or I can agree. Like, I already knew how Germany worked for the most part. I think one thing that might have also been a little unreasonable was like I was afraid I wasn't going to get my visa, but I met all of the requirements, and Germany isn't the type of country to say, oh no, you meet all of your requirements, you can't come. Like I had more of the US mentality that it's like super hard to get into the US, whereas that really wasn't like a issue with Germany for me, at least. And then also as far as like the Anmeldung, like getting registered and getting set up with bank accounts and whatnot, I wasn't afraid of it, but I think people can tend to blow it out of proportion somewhat, and like it's this big thing. And I just would recommend that people take a deep breath, and these are just a few little hurdles that you have to, and things you have to go through. But once you get it all set up, it's really simple, I would say, for the most part. So I think it can get in your head. So just taking a step back, breathing, and realizing everything will be okay is my advice in those situations.
Yeah. I think another fear that I had, and that actually stayed a little bit while I was here, but I just had like a strategy to deal with it, was kind of being that person that is clueless. Like I was a little bit afraid of like being that clueless person. Like I have to deal with things that I've never heard about before. I'm going to not understand what they're saying because I don't know the words that they're using. Yeah. And yes, those situations will happen, at least if you move to a country where they don't speak your native language. So like that fear was reasonable, I guess, because that did happen, of course. But it wasn't as embarrassing as I expected it to be, because I think, for one, I just like completely embraced it. And I would just always be like, hi, yeah, I'm the German exchange student. Like, I just don't know. And I was fine with like, playing that dumb card kind of. And then at the same time, I think that the American mentality also makes it a lot easier, because Americans are just, in a lot of cases, a lot more accommodating and are, better at making you feel good when you're lost. And I feel like Germans, on the other hand, are very good at making you shitty about being lost. Or at least that's my experience. I know that with people who don't speak German, that I've witnessed situations where the German people in the Behörde or store even weren't really trying to be nice to that person. And for me, that was like the opposite. In the US, everyone was just so kind and trying to help me. So that really made it easier too. I didn't have those moments of feeling exposed, because I always felt very well taken care of by everyone around me. Yeah,
I can agree with that. I think the reason why maybe I looked a little hesitant there was like, when it comes to social settings with friends or people of the same age in a relaxed environment, I feel like one thing that helped me, because I don't like being the dumb one in the room either, like not knowing or getting the joke, but kind of putting myself in the situation of the other person. If someone were to be speaking my native language that wasn't their native language and struggling to understand something or didn't get something, I would want to help them. And like, I wouldn't think they're dumb. I just would totally understand this is a foreigner who has different cultural references and a different cultural background. So it doesn't make sense to like put yourself in that situation and realize, okay, how would I react? And that's probably how this person is going to react. However, I would agree with you when it comes to more public settings. I feel like Americans do tend to go a little bit like go the extra mile to try to help someone and make sure that they're really taken care of, and are a little bit more proactive. I don't remember if I mentioned it in the podcast, but that was a big difference for me when I first started working in Germany, not even at my former employer that I moved to Germany with, but even when I did my internship in Germany. When you start like Americans tend to grab you by the hand and be like, hey, you need to meet this person, this person, this person. Let's go to lunch together. What are you doing after work? Like, I feel like they're very quick, for the most part, to bring you into the fold and make you feel part of the team. And that hasn't been my experience as much in Germany. You're a little bit more on your own, and there's less proactive from other people to make you feel that part of things. But
yeah. I think I was mainly, when I just said all that, thinking about situations like, as I said, in like a official place, you know, not necessarily like hanging out with friends, but more like in a classroom or when I had to like also deal with my visa stuff, like more things like that, or I don't know, buying a bus ticket or stuff like that, more like situations where I'm talking to a stranger and it's some weird setting where I don't know the words, more things like that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm definitely, I know that Germans, when it's more friends, aren't usually like a mean or something like that. But I have experienced in Germany in stores and other more public places where people are not friendly to those who don't speak German and aren't really trying to help them. So that's kind of what I was afraid of, I guess.
No, for sure. I don't want to keep going into to asides, but I can remember once I think I was actually visiting you in Hamburg.
Okay.
And I was on the train, and there were two trains that were leaving, I think it was Hannover to go to Hamburg, at the same time. And one was from Deutsche Bahn and one was from another service provider, actually. And the person, or maybe it was, I don't know if it was, one was the ICE and one was a regional train, but there was a difference in the train, but they were leaving from platforms next to each other at the same exact time. And I think they were Polish. This Polish father and son got onto the wrong train and were sitting next to me. And the what would you call it? Like the rail attendant? I don't know because I never ride trains in the U.S. But like the conductor was coming through and checking people's tickets.
Controleur. In German at least,
And he stopped at this father and son, and then was berating them about how they got on the wrong train, and they were trying to explain to him in English because they didn't speak German, that it was like they didn't know that thought that we were on the right train, and like they need to go where they're going. And the controleur, the conductor, was trying to make them get off at the next stop, and he was threatening to call the police. And at that point, I mean, you would expect an official person like this to be a little nicer about it. Like, it was an honest mistake. And I did see normal Germans get up, and at some point, like, the whole train car was like, okay, dude, you got to stop because they tried. Like, can't you have a little compassion? But yeah, I mean, it can be a little rough because I feel like that wouldn't happen in the U.S. necessarily, but that's maybe just my bias.
Yeah, we had an issue actually, and that's kind of one of the things that I was thinking about. Last time Ben was in Germany, it wasn't with him, luckily, but I almost said something to the person, and I ended up not saying anything. I think I should have. I just didn't want to start a whole scene. But there was, it was at the Residenz in Munich and at their souvenir shop. And we went to the Residenz to like go through and have a tour. And then afterwards we went to the souvenir shop to get some things for Ben's family. And there was another, I think he was a student. I think he was Asian looking, at least. I don't know where he was from or which language he was speaking, but he definitely hardly spoke any German. And he was trying to get a ticket to go into the Residenz for like a student discount. And he was showing his student ID and everything. And this woman was really, really rude to him. And she kept telling him that there was some problem. I don't even remember what the issue was, but he obviously didn't understand. And she just kept repeating it in German and got really mad. And I didn't understand why she couldn't just be nice to him, because he was obviously just like trying to get some cultural education at the, I felt so bad for him, and he ended up leaving. He ended up not going in. He just like, and if I had been him, I would have started crying because that was so awful how she treated him. And I just like, we were in the line after, right? And I should have said something, but this woman, I don't think there would have been any way to really get to her. I just said nothing. I just handed her my card and I just didn't talk to her because I was like, what the fuck did I just witness? That was so awful. And that poor person that didn't speak the language had just had the most awful experience and went back home.
Yeah, I don't know. I think sometimes Germans get very focused on the process, and if something isn't going according to the process, exceptions are not a huge thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, obviously we're not trying to hate on Germany, but these are definitely real experiences that we've also had. So
right. Yeah, this happens. Of course, there's also many very accommodating and friendly Germans. But these situations also happen, unfortunately. Well, there's one last question from the same person, actually. It's not even phrased as a question, but it's Sicherheit in den USA, Thema Waffen, etc. So safety in the US, topic guns, etc.
Yeah.
Topic of guns. So yeah, what do we have to say to that?
I mean, what is there to say? Statistically speaking, you're safer in Germany when it comes to guns, and I definitely feel that way too. As far as just in my everyday life, like I'm not really that concerned about people having guns or violence in general. I mean, of course, it still can happen. I mean, there was a shooting at some point in Munich. Like, it still can happen, you know.
Are you talking about the one from like
years ago?
Yeah, 6 years ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
The one at the Einkaufszentrum.
Yeah.
So like, I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but I definitely feel safer here than I do in the U.S. I used to live in downtown Cincinnati, and someone was killed in front of my apartment. Like, I was awoken in the middle of the night to gunshots. So like, that's a difference. And I remember in college we used to play a game. We called it a game, which it really isn't that funny. But gunshots or fireworks. Like, you would hear the bangs, and then you try to figure out which it was. Was it a gunshot or were they fireworks? And that's just not a thing here, obviously. So I would say, as far as that's concerned, I wish that the security that I feel here in Germany would also be something in the U.S. And I think it's a shame. I can understand a lot of the thoughts behind and the history behind why we have the Second Amendment in the U.S. and why, like, that was a thing. I just personally wish, for the safety of people, that we could do something to make it a little bit, or significant, not even a little bit, significantly safer for people. I mean, even people harming themselves, you know, if you're going through a rough time, I don't think it's good to have that easy access to a deadly weapon. But this is coming from someone who also enjoys shooting. Like, I go to the shooting range when I'm back in the U.S. I've shot various guns, and I enjoy shooting. It's a fun activity for me, but it's also not necessarily something I need in my life. And if it means that other people can live and we are all safer, I'm okay with more restrictions personally. But that's just my personal opinion. Yeah, people obviously are entitled to their own opinions, but I wish we could look past the idea of freedom that people have, quote unquote freedom, and look for what can we do for our fellow man and the general good. But yeah.
I agree with everything you said. I mean, I also definitely think that shooting at a shooting range has nothing to do with gun control. Like, you can rent a gun at the shooting range, and if you have it for, I guess, like sports reasons, or I don't know what you would call that, but like as like a, you know, free time activity, a hobby, then that could be possible under certain circumstances, or maybe you'd have to lock the gun away there, or like, you know, at a Schützenverein, for example, I know they often have the guns there. Like, I don't think the discussion about gun control should have anything to do with people enjoying shooting for fun. Because, like, yeah, I understand that. That's like, there's other sports where you like aim at a target, and this is one of them. And I mean, there's many sports where you do that for like a biathlon, for example. And I mean, other competitive sports where that's a thing, and that has nothing to do with the crime and the gun violence in the US, I don't think, personally. So that's always a weird thing, because I obviously think that there should be stricter gun control in the US, and I've spoken out about it many times, and one of the most common comments that I get from people is, oh, you're just afraid of guns because you've never shot a gun. And it's like, I have shot a gun. I personally don't super enjoyed it, but like I didn't mind it either, but if anything, it got me scared even more, if you will, because I realized how even who I really have respect for deadly weapons, felt really comfortable with a gun in my hand after just a few minutes. And I can only imagine what someone who like loves guns, how like low that threshold is for them. So like, if anything, that, you know, didn't take my fear away at all, because it is a deadly weapon, and you know, the more you know about it, the more afraid you should be, actually. So I don't understand that logic behind it. Of course, I understand that there's gun safety, and like responsible gun owners lock their guns away and like, you know, do all the safety procedures they should do. But yeah, shooting a gun really has nothing to do with that. And even if I really, really enjoyed shooting a gun every Sunday at a shooting range, I would still have the same opinion on gun control in civil society. I think that's just two completely different topics. But I agree with you, what you said about feeling, I mean, I definitely feel safer in Germany than I do here. And I guess I underestimated that when I first came here. I didn't think I would experience it as much as I did. The first few weeks even, I think that I was in the US in my exchange semester, there was like 2 active shooter alerts on UC campus.
Yeah.
And then luckily I wasn't on campus during those. I was just like, I was at home in the near distance of the campus. But there was also one time later on where I was on campus while it happened, and it was late at night and there was like nobody there anymore. And I was with one other student, which was good because I realized that I had no training whatsoever when it came to those situations because we'd never learned that in Germany.
Yeah,
and I didn't know how to behave. And I wasn't like super scared because it didn't like seem likely that that person is in our building of all the buildings. And I think it was more like, you know, those alerts come off kind of quickly whenever there's a shot released on campus. I think it was between 2 people over a drug issue or something like that. So it wasn't like a mass shooter that was trying to kill as many people as possible. But the university, of course, has to just say active shooter because they don't know. They just know that there was a shot on campus, which is crazy enough. So I wasn't like necessarily scared for my life or anything, but I did need to follow all the rules. And I remember that we locked ourselves into one of the classrooms and someone knocked on the door. And I would have answered them. But the other person, the other American told me, no, you can't say anything. But it was like the janitor, he actually, I don't know, I guess he should also know. I don't know what you do in that situation because I think he was just trying to see if he can lock all the doors, if anyone was still in there, because it was like close to midnight or something like that. But yeah, that was scary, and that's not the only experiences I've had, right? Like there was a shooting on the other street, like right over there, this direction, close to my house the other day, where people got arrested. The day after Uvalde, there was a shooting in a Walmart in Cincinnati where someone died. I mean, there's, as you say, like in Cincinnati, people get shot every single day, and it happens close, like it's gonna happen close to you at some point. And I know people who were robbed at gunpoint with a gun to their head, also close to the university. And those are all scenarios that growing up in Germany are from a movie. That's not real life. But then I came here and it became real life. And I didn't even tell my parents about all of these things in the beginning because I didn't want to worry them too much.
Yeah.
Of course, I didn't like actually think, okay, my life is at risk. But I took a lot of these things a lot more seriously that people had told me in the beginning, like, hey, don't walk alone in the dark. Where I was like, what do you mean? I'm a grown girl. I can walk alone. It's going to be fine. And I would get like more worried, and I got a pepper spray that I never had in Germany. I mean, I'm fortunate that nothing ever actually happened to me personally, but just having that in your direct environment and having friends who that happened to is scary enough. And as you said, hearing it. So
yeah, I mean, maybe I just wanted to add 3 things to that. Obviously, I grew up in suburbia, so I grew up like 20 miles outside of Cincinnati. So the crime rate there was much, much lower. It's going to be higher in the city.
And we have to say Cincinnati is actually a high crime city. Yeah. I think it's among the top 20 at least, maybe even top 10 sometimes, most violent cities in the U.S. So
exactly. So, I mean, growing up, it wasn't as big of a concern, but there was still robberies that would take place. And I mean, there was still crime. But as far as gun violence is concerned, it wasn't as big of a deal. But that was one interesting thing when I moved to Germany, though, and this was more recent, I realized, people here don't have active shooter training. Like that was something that we had to have in school. It was towards the end of my schooling that we started to have like, okay, what do you do if there's an active shooter? And I think that was like my last 2 years of high school that they started doing that. But I mean, I've been in those environments where, okay, like instead you do have your fire drill, you have your tornado drill, and you have your active shooter drill.
Yeah, we also have a tornado drill either.
Yeah, exactly. And like those were very normal things for me, and realizing that's not a thing here because gun violence isn't as prevalent by far, or anywhere close as prevalent, was an interesting observation for me. And then I think the third thing that I wanted to add was, as far as gun control is concerned, I just wanted to bring into the conversation, I don't think there's necessarily a blanket solution. Because the U.S. is so big and because the U.S. is so diverse in its population density and also wildlife and where people live, like, I get that what's right for New York might not be what's right for rural Montana. Like, I totally get that. And I think that those type of differences need to be taken into consideration when it comes to gun control laws. I don't think it's a simple solution by any means, but I do think that something needs to be done. I just wanted to add that little nuance as well.
Of course. Yeah, and I don't think we're trying to propose like the one solution, but something needs to happen. And other countries have shown that regulating guns actually leads to a safer place. And the fact that this country still, or a lot of people in this country still don't want to see that is pretty crazy, especially for me as an immigrant to this country, that I just sometimes feel like all those people are a little bit like just lacking common sense that we have in other countries, and you can see that working in other countries too. But at the end of the day, what you said earlier about freedom, because I know that that's something that is mentioned a lot in this context, is that this is a free country, we get to have our guns. I feel less free here. And that's just my personal perception. Like, and I have felt less free ever since I came here because I wasn't able to just go somewhere by myself, and I wasn't able to just go outside whenever I wanted to and go through the neighborhood that I wanted to go through. I always had to keep that in mind, like something might happen. Or you can't just like, not that I want to do that, but when people start a fight on the road, like you have these situations where people flip each other off and like get in a road rage with each other and, you know, get aggressive. And then I have seen that before, that someone got out of the car and walked like at the red light and walked to the car behind them. And I was so scared that they were going to pull a weapon and shoot that person, because that happens. And you have to be very aware of those situations, that you don't get in fights and conflicts with the wrong people, because you never know who might snap and have a gun on them. Yeah. So
one other thing that I just wanted to add, like you say that you feel less free in the U.S. Obviously, that is a critique on to the U.S., but that doesn't mean you don't want to be there. You know, like I think that's one thing.
But I mean, I will say there is going to be a point where it's too much. I mean,
for sure,
right now,
for sure.
It's getting there, especially with the women's rights too, kind of depending on how far they go. But I mean, just the gun control part itself, that wasn't like from the beginning, that wasn't like a situation where I was like, okay, I can't handle that at all. It was something that I stayed here despite that, basically. Yeah.
Exactly. But I just wanted to mention, like, you can criticize something and still enjoy the whole. I don't know.
Yes, of course. I said that in some of my most recent videos.
Yeah.
And like half of the people were like, you don't have to repeat that every single time. And the other half was like, still didn't hear me, basically. We're like, well, just go home then. Just, why are you here then? And basically you can like a country and you can like a place and you can like living there and still criticize, as you said, certain parts about it.
For sure.
That doesn't mean that I hate the U.S. and that I don't want to be here, because otherwise I would already leave. But I will say that right now with the political situation, it is going into a direction where I'm not sure if it keeps going that direction, if I will stay.
Yeah, no, understandable.
Yeah.
I don't want to end on such a heavy note, so
I know. I'm sorry.
I
picked those questions.
No, it's okay. I have, I think, one last question for us, which just brings back good memories for me. So, did we ever travel together?
Yes.
We've traveled together quite a few times in like the continental U.S., I would say. I mean, specifically, like we'd go to trips in Kentucky and Tennessee. I'm trying to think, did we go anywhere else together?
Puerto Rico.
Well, I was gonna get there.
Sorry.
It's okay. I don't think so, because we haven't been to Chicago together.
No, but we went to Kentucky several times and to Tennessee once.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Once or twice, I don't know. I think twice.
And obviously we've also done like a lot of little things in Cincinnati and stuff
Yeah.
like that. But then, yeah, one bigger trip together.
Yeah, and then I think the only time that we went to to Myrtle Beach together.
Yeah, that's true. I forgot about
So yes,
that.
we have traveled together quite a bit. We are good friends.
Yes.
And then I think the highlight of all of our trips together for me is definitely Puerto Rico.
100%. Shout out to Niklas because he
Yes.
planned that.
Yeah, he did. It was amazing. And
Yeah.
as I'm sitting here in cold Munich, I'm just thinking about how badly I want to go to the Caribbean and listen to Bad Bunny on the beach. Like, I would be a very, very happy person if that were the case right now. But yes,
Yeah.
we have traveled together.
Be assured, there, according to the news that I listened to, there's going to be 40 degrees or 45 degrees even, they said, in Germany, Celsius, which is like 100, I don't know how much. That's a lot. That's a very high number.
Hot.
So there's going to be a new heat wave in Germany soon, and then you're going to regret that you just said that.
Hey, well, then I'll just drive south to a beach. I need to be on a beach is what I need right now.
Yeah, I get that. That's too bad that there's no beach in Munich. But the beaches are close enough, technically, if you just drive to Italy or something
I
like
think,
that.
Italy or Croatia might be calling my name again here soon.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for submitting all of your questions today and for listening, of course. I think the whole strategy of answering the questions quickly just doesn't really work.
No.
And I apologize because I know that I always every time I hear a question, I'm like, oh, wait, there's something that I want to say about this topic. I hope I didn't repeat myself too much, but I think we actually talked about quite a lot of things that we
covered
didn't
a
really
lot.
talk about before. So yeah, thank you guys for listening. Again, of course, you can support us by subscribing to our YouTube channel, by following us on Spotify or Apple Podcast. Leave us a rating on Spotify. It's just like a quick 5-star review. Of course, not 1 star, do the 5-star. And you can also follow us on Instagram so that you can submit questions for the next Q&A on there. You can also message us on there. Okay, quick interruption. I think a Google Street View car just drove by here, and I haven't seen those in forever. I just saw that like out of the corner of my eye, and I was like, wait, was that actually it? And it was. Do you remember what those looked like? Kind of like with bluish and then the camera up top?
Yeah.
Sorry for the interruption.
Squirrel.
But yeah, and then you can also support us on Patreon, patreon.com/understandingtrainstation. And as we mentioned earlier, join our monthly hangout sessions if you want to.
And with that said, I guess we will talk to you guys in 2 weeks.
Yes. See you then. Tschüss.
Ciao.